What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Healthy Aging Report. So glad you could join in today. Got a really cool thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about telomeres and how they could possibly hold the key to aging. So, what are telomeres exactly? I'm glad you asked. Telomeres are these protective caps that are at the end of your DNA. So here's how it works. You're born with chromosomes from your dad, 23 and 23 from your mom, and what they do is they link up together and they form, the chromosomes house your DNA. And then when they're together, the DNA then tells your cells how to replicate or turn into, how to grow, and that's how you become a human being. Your DNA is the blueprint that tells all the cells in your body what to do. And we know that your cells are constantly dividing, replicating themselves, and your DNA is being passed on to all of the new cells. It's in every cell of the body. Well, what happens is every time that your cells replicate themselves, your DNA that's housed in the chromosomes in your cells, it gets shorter. And when it gets shorter, this leads to mutations such as cancer, other diseases. You don't quite get as strong of a replication as you had in the first place. It's just the way things are. Well, that leads us into telomeres, because if we didn't have telomeres, then your DNA, it would pretty much just dissipate and shorten every time that your cells replicated. So your telomeres, the end little caps at the end of your DNA, protect your DNA from getting shorter. But here's the problem: your telomeres, they get shorter every time that your cells replicate. Now, telomeres are not really a new thing. Scientists have known about them since the 1930s. However, they didn't really understand the role in telomeres. The genome, the human genome, DNA, wasn't really mapped out until 1984. So it's still relatively new that we know all of this information about DNA. So we're still living in a very exciting and new time period when it comes to genetic biology. It's really cool what we've done in such a short amount of time, and of course the advancements of computers and computer programs have helped us as well too. So let's just jump back into the telomere discussion. In 2009, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, I know it kind of sounds weird, was awarded to three different researchers or scientists: Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and Jack Szostak. And the reason why they were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was because they discovered an enzyme called telomerase. They also discovered the true purpose of your telomeres. Again, we knew about them beforehand, but we didn't really know about what they did as far as protecting the DNA when it replicates. So, Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and Jack Szostak, they discovered that the telomeres protected the DNA, which is really important. And then they also discovered that there's an enzyme called telomerase that potentially rejuvenates and protects your telomeres. A lot of scientists believe that the shortening of your DNA every time that it replicates on your telomeres is a key in the aging process. They don't think that it's necessarily the only factor for aging, but they think that it is one of the major factors for aging. And again, this wasn't discovered until 2009. So we're like talking about 11 years ago. I mean, this stuff is still relatively new in its infancy. So, back to the whole thing. The story goes that Elizabeth Blackburn uh, was looking at some research with lobsters, and she discovered that lobsters don't tend to age. That's right, you heard me. Lobsters don't tend to age. What happens is their cells keep replicating themselves, and then they molt, and so they get bigger and they molt. And when they molt, the protective exoskeleton is comes off, and then you have a new bigger lobster uh, there. And of course it takes some time for the exoskeleton to harden, but they keep growing and growing and growing. Now lobsters do die, usually because the energy required to molt, it gets larger and larger as the exoskeletons get larger, and the energy requirement usually gets too much for the lobsters to handle, and so they die metabolically, or they can't molt, and then their exoskeleton develops cracks, and then bacteria and other stuff like fungus get in there, and basically the lobster rots from the inside out. I know, pretty gross. But what she did realize again is that they don't age, they don't grow wrinkles, they don't, get slower. It's just really strange. And when she dove into the genetics of them, that's when she started to notice this enzyme called telomerase. They had high levels of it, and the telomerase was preventing their telomeres from shortening. So what we know is that this enzyme, telomerase, can actually rejuvenate your telomeres and can actually prevent them from shortening. Now, you may be thinking, well, why don't we just start injecting ourselves with telomerase? I mean, why doesn't everybody get this miracle drug? Well, there's a caveat, there's a kind of like a problem to that. So, telomerase is also found in cancer cells. Yep. That's the reason why cancer cells just keep growing, growing, and growing, because their telomeres from their DNA is protected by telomerase. And so telomerase keeps that DNA from shortening and shrinking, so then the cancer just keeps growing and growing and growing. So some scientists believe that if you started injecting yourself with telomerase, that, number one, if you had cancer at all, it would probably grow exponentially. And number two, who knows what it would do to the other organs of your body, making them larger, kind of like lobsters. Would we outgrow our bodies? Would our organs grow from the inside out? We really don't know. So that's kind of the reason why we haven't done a lot of testing, with other animals with telomeres. And I'm sure there's some stuff going on that we don't know about, but, again, it's all this research is still in its infancy. So, now you're probably asking yourself, well, the length of your telomeres and the amount of telomerase you have, is that genetic? And the answer was very surprising. It actually turns out that no, it's not really genetic. Let me explain. There were some other studies that were done on identical twins. So when an identical twin is born, you have one cell that replicates into two different cells, and then two different organisms grow from that, and you have identical humans. Genetically, they are 100% identical. Whether they're souls or not, I don't think so, but yeah, every individual has its own unique soul. Own God presence. Well, anyways, back to the study. So this study lasted for a while. And one of the things that they studied was they would go and they would visit older identical twins, 50s, 60s, 70s, older, whatever. And they made sure that when they did the study that they did it on twins that did not live together and lived far apart. And what they found was very astonishing. A lot of times, you would have one twin that would look younger than the other twin. And then when they examined their telomeres, they found out that one twin, the twin that looked younger, had longer telomeres. So what this means is that genetics does not play as much of a role in the shrinking or shortening of telomeres than what we originally thought. They also found, and this was very interesting as well too, is that the twin with the shorter telomeres was 3 times as likely more to die earlier before the other twin. That's huge. That is a big statistical number right there. So what we know is that, number one, telomeres are affected by environmental factors. So we know that the diet, you eat, your exercise, activities, even meditation plays a role in the shortening of your telomeres or the preservation of your telomeres. This is really cool. So it turns out that we as humans actually have a means to slow down the aging process when it's concerned with telomeres and also telomerase, the enzyme. Well, let's cap it off. Did it one more time real quickly with what we learned today. Telomeres are the end caps, like a shoelace cap, of DNA. And every time that your cell replicates and forms new DNA, the telomeres get slightly shorter. We also know there's an enzyme, telomerase, which has the ability to rejuvenate the telomeres and prevent them from shrinking. We've also found out or discovered that the length of your telomeres and their shortening is more affected by your environment than it is by your genetics. This is all profound stuff, especially in the healthy aging sector. So, if you want to keep your telomeres healthy and long, it's pretty much common sense. Just don't eat bad stuff, exercise regularly, meditate, take care of yourself, decrease your stress, have a positive outlook on life. All that stuff is going to help you live longer. But what's really cool to me is that what we once thought were just, wise tales, like, oh yeah, this is going to help you live longer, this is going to help you live longer, or we think that these certain factors, like working out, will help you live longer. We now have a way of measuring that shows that yes, it does. And the reason why it does is because it helps to prevent the shortening of your telomeres. All right, I hope you enjoyed today's little lesson on telomeres and telomerase. If you like this info, again, like always, like, share, throw some comments in there. In the description, I've got a link to the website, social media, all of that stuff. Awesome. And until next time, I hope you have an awesome, fantastic day. Peace!